Hello, welcome back to my Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous Azata Let's Play. I have looked into it and I think I know how you... Well, I figured out what you're meant to do to revive companions. First of all, we need a scroll of Raised Dead, which we do not have, so we'll have to buy from this guy. Now they are quite expensive, but we can cut some of that if we sell off all the junk, plus dump some of these, well yeah, some of the weapon junk that we've picked up. Yeah, I don't need those. Don't need 6 composite longbows. Don't need 7 masterwork glaives. Scimitars or sights. Javelin, no. Oh, Sealer could probably do with that, actually. We'll keep that. Get rid of the scimitar. Oh, I should put that on somebody. Right, there you go. That's made it much cheaper. Now, did he say that he could read... I mean, he says that you can read scrolls. But I don't really know what he means by that. And then I think all we have to do is... go over to Camellia and then... use the scroll. Yeah, there she is. Back on her feet. All ready for us to not use her anymore. Because we've done her quest and I'm not that fussed about having her around for this playthrough. Be sure to use her in a different one in the future, but for this one, there she is. In kind of the wrong place, but... Greetings. So, you're Horgus's daughter. You've discovered my most terrible secret. Father cares so much about the Gwyrm name that he raised me in our mansion, hiding me away from the whole world. I'll always be grateful to my father for everything he's done for me, even if Mendev society disapproves of some of his decisions. Would it be insolent of me to beg for your discretion regarding what you know about us? She basically already said that, didn't she? Camillia's words are polite, but her tone grows cold and sharp. Let us keep this as our little secret. I assure you, my father and I appreciate loyalty and discretion. For both myself and my father, I thank you for your understanding. I found a number of interesting implements and accessories in the Gwyrm mansion. Oh yeah, there was a room full of either bondage or torture gear. How kind of you to share that you've gone through the Gwyrm's dirty laundry and drawn some bizarre conclusions. If you value my company, please refrain from making such insinuations in the future. That's pretty defensive, Camellia. I have to go, we'll talk later. I won't keep you. The dawning smile on Camellia's face freezes and quickly dies away. Seeing as we're here, let's chat with some of the new party members we find. First off, Darren, seeing as he's there. The Defender's Heart is simply a splendid choice for our Crusades outpost. The very sight of these walls brings back fond memories of drink and revels. The drinks were really good, by the way. What made you join my party, after all? You mean instead of carousing far away from Canabras with a small army of mercenaries to protect me? I will get to that. You see, when you appeared at my door out of nowhere, awash with bravery and heroism, and started tossing demons around like ragdolls, I thought that your company might be more exciting than my usual crowd of sycophantic hangers-on. You seemed competent and mysterious at the same time, so I decided that a little demon hunting wouldn't hurt, especially with such an intriguing entourage. That party had been growing staler with every passing second anyway. Needless to say, I am not here for long. I shall return to the capital or even one of my country estates as soon as we reclaim the city. Crusades, bellowing commanders, row upon row of identical tents. This is not the life for me. But I will certainly remember you and our adventures together, for a week or perhaps even longer than that. May I ask you a few personal questions? You can try. I've heard stories about the tragedy that befell your family. I hope you don't feel obliged to offer me your insincere condolences on this unfortunate occasion. My whole family, my entire noble line, they all died. And demons are to blame. It's not like I actually loved any of my relatives, except for my mother, but what's gone is gone. The family crypts are full of corpses, all covered in dust and the shadows of the past. What do you cherish most in life? There are far too many things that I cherish to fit them all into a single conversation. Believe it or not, but I might be one of the most life-loving people you've ever known. Darren smiles, his eyes are gleaming with something different from his usual impudence and irony. There's a dreamy air about him all of a sudden. I rarely meet anyone who embraces the joys of living as enthusiastically as myself. There are so many exciting and beautiful things in the world, it should be illegal to waste your time on anything you do not enjoy. And I am not afraid to repeat that to anyone's face, should it be Discari and his demonic herd, or Iomade the Lightbringer herself. What do you hate the most? The feeling of helplessness. The lack of control over my own life. Darren replies without thinking. Then he adds with obvious sarcasm, and onion rings, of course. I'd murder the person who came up with those abominations. You don't seem especially keen on helping people, but your knowledge of healing is truly impressive. What prompted your interest in that? If you really want to try out everything life has to offer, you also have to understand how to deal with the consequences. And I'm not talking about a simple hangover, mind you. Do you have any good stories about your past exploits? I've got plenty, but I have to warn you that even the most outrageous debauchery sounds far less thrilling when you were not the one doing the debauching. Still, since you asked, I suppose the worst mess I've ever got myself into was when I staged my own kidnapping. I was once in correspondence with one of the Riverland nobles, the young Lord Labida, and he told me about his days as a hostage to a group of bandits. This made me wonder what it would be like, and I thought it might be fun to set up a little experiment. I engineered my own kidnapping by a certain gang through a chain of intermediaries and hired actors. Those fellows took the job very seriously. They caught me by surprise, killed 2 of my bodyguards, and even tied me up. Of course, the whole thing seems preposterous now, but it seemed like an ingenious idea at the time. The employers had told the kidnappers that they were to keep me safe and sound, and another group of mercenaries in disguise was watching the spectacle from afar, ready to interfere in case anything went wrong. It turned out to be a terrible idea nonetheless. It wasn't the least bit fun or exciting. Sure, those bandits had been unable to torture or hurt me physically in any way, but they had plenty of other, non-invasive methods of humiliation in their arsenal. Taking almost all of your clothes off and splashing ice-cold water over you, for example. Ugh. I can't even remember if I said anything truly offensive to provoke them. Even though I initially planned to let them go after the ransom, their overly emotional reactions made me change my mind. I told my mercenaries to hang them all on the spot. I suppose the whole ordeal taught me a valuable lesson, which is that I'm not built for hardship and trials. Wait, you just told me that a couple of your bodyguards died during the staged kidnapping. Does that mean 2 innocent people lost their lives so that you could have a bit of fun? Darren pales a little, but not out of shame. Oh, spare me. It irks me beyond all measure when I hear about the suffering of innocence. He sighs, looks away, and continues in a flat, polite tone. Yes, the bodyguards died. Guarding nobles is a dangerous job, and they were well aware of the risks. I don't really see a problem with that. Besides, they proved their incompetence. They would have stood no chance against real kidnappers. So we are good and chaotic, so there's... I don't think we're so chaotic as to endorse this sort of behaviour, though. So we'll go with the good. Your cruel jokes bring people nothing but misery. And? So that was a stupid story, and now I'll tell you a truly brilliant one. Prelate Holren had always strictly prohibited any public celebrations in Canabris, and he always picked on me for my lack of respect for the fallen and the whatnot. His grumbling annoyed me so much that one day I drove 4 barges into the city harbour and set up a celebration on their decks. The ships on the river didn't fall under the prelate's jurisdiction, you see, so all he could do was snarl at me from the embankment. I, for one, did not forget the old boy. The main attraction of the festivities involved an Inquisitor of Iomedae dancing and roasting beautiful wenches on illusionary bonfires, taking off his clothes with every new victim. The spectacle was so heated, in every sense of the word, that prelate almost had a stroke. Darren gives you a mischievous smile. I still consider that one of my finest ideas of all time. Should the Crusaders ever succeed in their efforts against the World Wound, I will do my utmost to get permission to hold a grand public celebration. Rivers of wine free of charge. An obligatory parade and a carnival in the evening. A contest for the most provocative succubus costume with a hefty prize in gold. Another contest where the participants have to fish a sausage out of a wine jar blindfolded with their hands tied behind their backs. The wine will symbolise the blood of all the dead heroes of the war. And the sausage, well, they'll find a heroic meaning for that as well. Over the years, the commemoration of the greatest victory of light over darkness will turn into an ordinary holiday, a fine excuse to get sloshed and run around like animals in the streets. Do you enjoy being mean to everyone? Yes. And here I thought you were hurling insults at people purely by accident. Darren laughs. This time his smile is surprisingly soft. I like your way with words. What did you expect me to say if I wanted to make a good impression? What did you expect me to say if I wanted to make a good impression? Something along the lines of, I'm not mean, I'm just being honest with myself and everyone else. That's what people use as an excuse when they want to keep up their saccharine facade while still saying whatever nasty little thoughts spring to mind. That is not what I do. I have no hidden agenda. I'm just as much an insufferable prick as I seem to be. Some people are simply begging for a good dose of mockery, so who am I to deny them? I don't give a damn if anyone holds a grudge against me, which is why I don't even try to avoid it. Ah, Darren. I hope this conversation was at least the slightest bit amusing. I'd like to talk about life in Mendev and the Crusade. Ask, I'm all ears. What's your opinion on Mendev today in general? It doesn't exist, Darren scowls. It is a frontier country that has attracted every utopian, adventurer and fanatic from all over the world for more than a century. It is a place where strangers outnumber the locals, especially in the cemeteries. The population of Mendev for the most part consists of humans and other races not exactly known for their longevity. So the current generation of Mendevians were born in the shadow of the World Wound and raised by the Crusades. I might be the last person to complain about the decline of traditions and the lack of character in our country, but I also happen to come from one of Mendev's most ancient lineages. Its history is bred deep in my bones. My tutors told me stories about my heritage, the galleries, libraries, and even the interiors of the manors I grew up in were filled to the brim with memories of events long past. There are many heroes of old Mendev among my glorious ancestors, or at the very least patrons and contemporaries of such heroes. Does anyone actually remember them now? I don't think so. These days Mendev has its own heroes, in shining armour and with holy fire in their eyes. I myself remember how several streets that once celebrated my ancestors were renamed in honour of some crusaders who had died in a heroic fashion. None of the citizens remember the old crossing festival that was eventually replaced by Amasi. These holidays even share the same date. Pretty much the only authentic thing about Mendev now is this endless war with the demons. And is there a point in bemoaning this state of affairs? What's gone is gone. But at least we are no longer some tiny godforsaken northern kingdom, and that's something, isn't it? You don't really like Crusaders, do you? Quite the opposite. When I think about how many devoted heroes are willing to protect this world against the demonic threat, I feel so inspired. Inspired to continue indulging my vices while they fight to keep me safe. Imagine being someone like me. Someone who has everything they can possibly desire. Youth, beauty, wealth, an honest wish to live and enjoy living. But vanishingly few ways to put it all to any use. The fact that the word fun itself is not yet outlawed in Mendev must be due to some bureaucratic oversight. You can celebrate your victory solemnly. You can wet your whistle after a challenging battle. But what about real fun? Joy, pleasures. I can't remember a single evening at court without someone chastening me for my banquets, my lovers and mistresses, my luxuriant clothes, my everything. It would have been a lot easier to tolerate all those hypocrites if they took a break once in a while. Instead, there was a constant fuss about how I wasn't doing anything for the greater good, and how I only brought shame to my royal cousin. What do you think of our enemies? Do you mean the demons themselves or their followers? The former deserve to be cleansed with heavenly fire for their unholy origin alone, and the latter for their idiocy. I don't understand why a sane person would submit themselves to Discari or Kabiri. Alright, Lady Noctilla almost seems like a bearable enough mistress. Yet there are so many other cultists. They've tried to recruit me twice already, and I'm not even that old. First, a very pretty tiefling girl tried to seduce me. Then they came with the promise of Lord Baphomet's endless boons. I still wonder what exactly the old hornhead could offer me that I don't already have. You know what I've been thinking? Every shopkeeper knows this trick. An enticing offer along the lines of, 1 in every 100 buns from my bakery contains a silver coin. And of course, a hired actress to make a memorable show of finding said coin in her sweet roll. And there you have it. Hundreds of gullible fools storm the shop hoping to win a prize for themselves. I think the infamous Arilu Vorlesh was such an actress for the Lords of the Abyss, a petty Sarkorian witch who became the uncrowned queen of the Worldwound, waited upon hand and foot by demon lords. Only instead of visiting a bakery, the gullible fools rushed to join the cultists. We have an army of unbelievably powerful supernatural invaders from another dimension, hell-bent on destruction and domination. And what do those fools do? They serve them willingly as pawns and lackeys, hoping against hope that someday their masters will notice them. You won't believe how delighted I am to be so vain and self-absorbed. These sins protect me against the demonic temptation better than any virtue. I can't think of anything else at the moment. Wonderful. I should go. Goodbye. Oh, here's Ember. Let's chat with her. The elf in front of you is young. Still an adolescent by the standards of their long-lived folk. A childish, carefree smile plays on her face, and her wandering eyes linger on you for just a moment before darting off again into the distance. Terrible scars cover her body, and a few of her fingers are missing. A crow sits on her shoulder, observing you with its clever black eyes. Tell me about yourself, Ember. Well, They call me Ember. I used to live in the River City, and now I walk with you. That's my story. Why do they call you Ember? I've had many names. When I was little, Mum and Dad called me Dove, or Cricket, or Kitten. Dad called me his ray of sunshine. And when my mum was cross, she called me by a long name, a grown-up one. I can't remember it, no matter how hard I try. Then, when I came to live in the River City, the good people called me different funny names, like Ember or Torch or Smoky. I don't know why. They called me Bird Brain because I have a crow. They called me Lucky Seven because of my fingers. She raises her hands. The middle finger on her right hand and the two smaller fingers on her left are missing. They sometimes called me Grilled Meat and said I was stupid, but I didn't feel hurt. I mean, they're right. I really am silly. They didn't mean to hurt me. I like Ember. It's a good word. Embers are like people. On the outside they're grey and cold like stones, but they're warm inside. You can blow on them and they'll start a fire to help you survive a cold night. And that's wonderful, isn't it? Ember it is. Where are you from? Far away from the flower country. The girl gestures vaguely off into the distance. It's so beautiful there. Everywhere there's flowers blooming, golden towers and waterfalls. And everyone is like me, with pointy ears. There's no round-ear people, or short ones, no horned heads. We live there together, Me and Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad argued a lot. Dad used to say that all the good people should go on the crusades and fight the demons. Mum said he was silly because it was so far away and none of our business, and that he shouldn't abandon his child. She meant me. But he didn't abandon me. He took me along. He said I was born the same year that the hole to the demon world opened. He said it was a sign that I would be one of the heroes who close it. Of course, I'm not a hero, but I'm here anyway, helping as much as I can. Where did you get your scars? It happened by accident. My dad and I came sailing down the river to join the crusade. Dad said that all the good people were going to the world wound to heal it. He said that the crusaders were the best people in the world and together we were going to win. But when we arrived in the river city, the crusaders got everything mixed up. They thought my dad and I were bad and decided to burn us at the stake. Dad died, and I cried so loudly that one good night realised it was all a big mistake. He started yelling at the other crusaders, even the one in charge, and then walked right into the fire and got me out. The others wanted to stop him, but he took out his sword and scared them away. The kind knight took me to a healer. I later learned that while the knight was pulling me from the flames, he himself was hurt so badly that he died not long after. But I'm still alive. A few fingers missing, and my skin is funny. I've lived in the river city ever since. I never had my own house, but I had many friends. And then the demons came, and I met you. And you know what happened after that. What's the good option? Is it really so easy for you to forgive them? I'm not sure I could be so merciful. Or chaotic. They must have thought they were doing something lawful and just. That's what happens when people let the law do their thinking for them instead of their conscience. Yeah, that's very nest. We'll go with that. No! You see, for some reason they were afraid of us. We were their friends, and there were lots of them and just two of us, and they had weapons. But they still looked at my dad and me like we were going to bite their heads off. Even when we were already on fire. Even when that good knight was carrying me away in his arms, they looked at us with terror. I don't think fear ever has any reason to it. It just lives inside people and makes them do evil. Do you worship any deity? The girl shakes her head with an unwavering smile. Dad taught me to pray to Iomedae. He said she was a kind goddess, and she called people to crusade against evil. The knights who burned my dad and me worshipped her too. They even lit a fire with a prayer to her. And she did nothing to help us. But then one kind knight, alone, without any gods, changed his mind and saved me. I think the gods are the same as us. They don't understand anything, and they're scared of everything, so they hurt themselves and the rest of us. People worship the gods only because they're afraid of being responsible for themselves. And the gods listen to the prayers, and they become smug and arrogant, and begin to believe that they're better than us. But they're no better. They're silly sinners just like the rest of us. Sometimes I pray to gods. Different ones. The good ones, the bad ones. I ask them to stop. Stop fighting and hurting each other. I don't know if they ever hear me, but if they do... I mean, the knight who wanted me to burn, he was able to change his mind and do a good deed. If he can change, maybe Baphomet can too. How did you survive on the streets? The elf shrugs. There are many good people in the river city. When I sang for them in the street, they'd often give me coins or bread or sometimes even clothes. I shared everything with the other homeless, and they showed me where it's safe to sleep, where I could get out of the rain and the cold, where I could find discarded things. When the demons destroyed the river city, I looked for my friends and I found no one. They probably all died. The homeless have no supplies or weapons or basements to hide in, and the knights won't protect them either. Knights are like gods, so self-important. They're saving the world after all. What do they care about the homeless? Still smiling, the girl shrugs. Where do your magical powers come from? These tricks, I have them from my grandma. She used to be my father's grandma, and before that, his father's. I've never seen her myself, but she's very clever and kind. When I lived on the street, sometimes she left food for me or a blanket in the winter. Sometimes I feel her stroking my hair as I fall asleep, but if I open my eyes, there's no one there. She also sent me soot. She scratches the crow's beak, and the bird grumbles happily in response. She tells Soot how to do different tricks, and Soot teaches me. Law religion check. Success. It appears that Ember doesn't know who exactly gives her these powers, but you can guess from her words that her patron is Andoletta, a powerful archon, one of the Imperial Lords, also known as Grandmother Crow. Thank you for your answers. Oh, not at all. I didn't really tell you anything. You're always so cheerful. How did you manage to remain so hopeful when we're surrounded by such horror? Hope? She tilts her head and continues to smile. No, hope is a lie. What should we hope for? This world is in the hands of demons. The gods can't help, or they don't want to, or they forget about us altogether. The people know they're about to be eaten by demons, but still they quarrel with each other and fight and steal. There's no hope. Only us. We'll have to win without hope. It will be hard. The entire abyss is against us. We can only win by some miracle, which means we'll have to make one happen. What other choice do we have? We'll work a miracle and win, because we have to. The elf smiles broadly and nods to herself. I have to go. So go. The elf watches you with a radiant smile as you leave. Yeah, Ember's definitely Ness vibe, I think. She's my vibe too. I like her. Finally, Nenio. Girl, I am pleased with you. I asked you to bring me to safely, and that's exactly what you did. Indeed, having a follower to aid me is most efficient and, frankly, pleasing. With you on hand, I shall conquer new horizons, plumb the depths of knowledge hitherto unknown, and scale the dizzying heights of future discoveries. Nenio stops to catch her breath. What I mean is, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude. I foresee immense potential in our future cooperation. Do you always express your delight so effusively? What? Who are you? Nenio stares at you for a while, bewilderment in her eyes, but then it is replaced by recognition. Oh yes, my new follower. So what am I supposed to do? Oh yes, I must provide some verbal encouragement for your as yet modest achievements and try to induce you to strive for more of such encouragement. That is the principle that underpins any training. She frowns, but only for an instant. Ah, I see. Your modest nature was unsettled by the overabundance of my gratitude. I do apologize for putting you in such an awkward position. I will never praise you again, unless I forget. But let's get back to the business at hand. Your new assignment will be to take me to the inconspicuous ruins that are located in an even more inconspicuous valley lying between Canabras and Dresden, as soon as it is reasonably practical. I will mark the place on your map with a large red cross so you won't forget it. What's so special about these ruins near Canabras? I'm glad you asked. This is my greatest hypothesis, my secret project, and I wouldn't pass up on the opportunity to share it with you, because you are my most loyal follower, and you are worthy of possessing such knowledge. Nenio rubs her nose. And also because you are the first person to ever ask me about it. Some time ago I was walking around the border of the Worldwound and I met a strange person. He was wearing a frayed grey robe and his face was hidden behind an odd white mask. Of course, I didn't miss the opportunity to ask him about the reasons for his absurd appearance, and do you know what he said to me? He said, I am the answer, but what is the question? And then he walked off in the direction of the Worldwound. The next day, after I had already forgotten about the first encounter, I had another similar encounter. This time, I met an elven woman. Judging by the pointy ears sticking out from behind the mask, I am the answer, but what is the question? She said, before taking off toward the Worldwound. And then I realised, everything became clear to me. I know a mystery when I see one. Consider this one of my myriad talents. Nenio rubs the tip of her nose. After all these geysers weren't simply on their way to a costume party, were they? After examining several maps, I determined that they were all heading in one direction, to a place not far from Canabras, a place which is marked as a nameless ruin even on ancient Sarkorian maps. That is where I need to go. Unravelling the secret of that place will be my greatest discovery. It will secure my place in history, or perhaps even in legend. How do you know where we have to go? Do you know how to find a beehive in a forest? You need to catch 2 bees, set them free in 2 different locations of the forest, and remember the directions they fly in. Then you take a map and draw a line showing the bees' routes. The place where the lines intersect will mark the location of the beehive. Fascinating, yes? By the way, forest bees do not make any honey. Nenio sighs. I used the beehive principle here too. For a couple of months I tracked the strange people in the masks and observed the directions in which they were travelling. I collected the coordinates, mapped their estimate routes, and made a discovery. All the routes intersect at the nameless ruins not far from Canabras. What do you expect to find there? I haven't the slightest idea. If I knew it was hidden there, I wouldn't be so eager to go. These ruins aren't very far from Canabras. You could easily get there all by yourself. Why do you need me? Nenio's eyes seem ready to pop out of their sockets in surprise. Don't you see? This is a legendary secret place. Who knows what may happen to me after I lift the veil and uncover the workings of the universe? My mortal body may be unable to contain all that knowledge, or perhaps I will ascend and become equal to the gods themselves? I need you to write down everything that happens and report my fate to the interesting parties in Absalom. And don't forget to praise me as I deserve while you're there. You know, these ruins of yours may turn out to just be that, ruins. Nenio shrugs. In that case, we'll write this experiment off as a failure and start another one. I don't know which experiment I'll try next. That's all I wanted to know about your task. Well, now you know. So off we go. Nenio frowns. Did I just make a rhyme? Perhaps I've discovered a poetic talent in myself? Let's conduct an experiment. Quickly, say any word and I'll try to find a rhyme for it right away. Creation. Crustacean. Cogitation. Not the best rhymes, don't you think? Well, this experiment was unsuccessful. We learned that I have no poetic talent at all. Nenio sighs. But it's no reason to despair. Having a gift of poetry in addition to my inexhaustible intellect would have been a little too much. Besides, I am catastrophically busy and I have no time to spend on writing poetry. I don't like it when you call me girl. My name is Nest. On the grand scale of the whole world history, your name is irrelevant. I have no reason to remember it. You see, the brain of any given individual can contain only a limited amount of facts. I only expend my memory on things that are truly important. The laws of thermodynamics, divine esoterica, planar geography, things that will lead Golarion to a brighter future. Nenio rubs her nose. Because, what if I made a great discovery, but I won't be able to remember it because my memory is full of outdated or useless information? What a nightmare that would be. What a loss for the whole of Golarion. But you do remember your own name, right? Only so I know what to put for the author's name in my encyclopedia. Are there any names worth remembering? There are, and to my deepest regret, there are too many of them. Nenio heaves a sigh that would befit a grief-stricken old man. The names of gods and demigods, the names of rulers, conquerors, and other persons by some reason deemed great by the people of Golarion, they etch their names into history and, alas, every self-respecting educated person must know them. But there are some names I am happy to remember. Great scientists, some of them divine, others mortal, true keepers of knowledge and great experimentalists. The pioneers of knowledge, Irori, Nethys, Arulu Vorlesh. Arulu Vorlesh opened the world wound. She's a betrayer of humanity. It's her fault the demons invaded Golarion. Admiring Arulu Vorlesh is going too far, don't you think? I didn't expect you to mention Arulu Vorlesh. Interesting. Let's go with that one. You think so? She is the greatest of the greatest. Just imagine, she managed to open a rift from the Golarion to the Abyss. No one knew how. No one believed it possible. No one ever dreamed of such a thing. And she just did it. It was the experiment of the century. Nenio wipes a tear from her eye. I would have been so happy if I could have been in her place. Of course, some part of Golarion's population died as a result of her experiment, and the Crusaders are still wrestling with the consequences to this day. But the very essence of what Aurelia managed to do was a breakthrough of cosmic significance, both figuratively and literally. Sooner or later, the world wound will be closed. Peace will return to Golarion. As for the victims of the ongoing war, they will be remembered as unfortunate but unavoidable sacrifices made at the altar of science. Nenio blinks at you, perplexed. Were we talking about something? Tell me about yourself. I'm an explorer, a pilgrim, a yet-to-be-recognised scientific luminary, future author of the Encyclopedia Galarica, and rector of all Absalon's universities at once. Future rector, I should say. Nenio speaks in one breath, as if reeling off a practice monologue. That information should be enough to satisfy your curiosity, because I doubt I'll be able to tell you more than that. Where are you from? That information is irrelevant. I have decided to forget it. How did you become a scientist? That information is irrelevant. I've decided to forget it. You have a circle tattooed on your shoulder. What does it mean? Nenio casts a sidelong glance at her shoulder. Oh, that. I do not remember the circumstances of its creation, but I like it. I prefer to think of it as a zero. No, null, nothing. A center point, an origin for coordinates. It reminds me how much of the unknown world there is to explore. Don't you remember how you got this tattoo? That information is irrelevant. I've decided to forget it. How can you just decide to forget important pieces of information? This is just one of my many talents. The secret is to stop thinking about the thing you want to forget. And the main thing is not to remember anything you don't need, to filter it, to get right to the essence. I'll teach you someday, unless I forget. What is this encyclopedia you're working on? The Encyclopedia Galarica will be published in 100 volumes, 1,000 pages each, plus the author's addenda, appendices added by future co-authors, and critical commentaries. Addenda indexation is still in question. Nenio looks slightly embarrassed. I just like the number 100, but I'm not sure that I'll be able to keep within the established word limit. It will be a magisterial piece of scholarship that will become a part of the mandatory curriculum of every educational institute worth mentioning. In it, I intend to describe every object, item, event, fact, and personality that is present on, or at least somehow related to, Golarion. My calculations have shown that I have completed no more than 1% of this monumental book. I think you need an editor, Nenio. Do you remember your parents, your past, or is that all irrelevant too? All of it is irrelevant on the grand scale of world history. I have no reason to remember such things. Forgive me for saying this, but you're out of your mind. Nenio stays silent and gives you a puzzled look. What? What were we talking about? I'll stop torturing you with questions for now. Eh? What were we talking about? I have to go. Nenio produces a crumpled piece of paper from her sleeve and takes some notes on it. This conversation lasted approximately 5 minutes. She lifted her chin. By the way, did you know that this is the exact same amount of time the Inquisitors of Canabris need to find the defendant guilty? But to shake off Inquisitors chasing you takes 5 times as long. That experiment proved that running while clad in heavy armor is not burdensome for them at all. Yeah, Nenio's nuts. Oh, some loot there. I actually don't think we've spoken to Woljif either. Let's do it. Woljif gives you a friendly wave. Hey, Chief, want to talk? I want to know more about you. How much is more? Are your family tieflings too? My family? That's an interesting story actually, but I don't tell it to just anyone. My father and mother had a bakery. Their life was great, but the gods never blessed them with any children. One day my mother went to the river to wash some clothes and saw a basket floating downstream. Inside the basket was a baby, adorable and chubby and fast asleep. It was yours truly. In my hand was a note spritized with an expensive perfume that said, "Take care of my little angel." My mother brought me home, and she and my father realized right away that I was heaven sent. They raised me as their own. When I turned 15, my mother showed me my baby blanket. It was embroidered with the coat of arms of an unknown kingdom, all in gold thread. Ever since then, I've been looking for my real parents. But it's not easy. Traveling takes money. So, if you have a few gold coins, I'll pay you back as soon as I find my real family. I give you my word. That doesn't sound very believable. Seriously? Usually everyone just believes everything I say. People love stories like that, you know. A cute baby, a basket, a blanket. What's not to love? They look at me directly as if I'm worth more than just the sheets I spit up on. They look at me differently, as if I'm worth more just because the sheets I spit up on might have had a fancy coat of arms on them. Woljif laughs bitterly. If I was a real prince, I wouldn't be sitting around here, I can tell you that much. I've already gone to take what was rightfully mine, and when I come back with an I'd come back with an army, so I could watch the guards and merchants who pushed me around all my life bow and scrape before me. But that's not going to happen. Want to hear the real story? The true story is boring. My family is human, both my mother and father. They used to live in a village nearby. I forgot the name. When my ma had me, my old man got so mad he almost killed her. Pinned her to the wall and started asking questions, like why his son had horns and a tail. When my ma told him that her mother, my grandma, used to fool around with a demon. When he heard this, Daddy Dearest got drunk, trashed the house, and then took off. I don't remember any of this, of course. My grandma told me. I was about 3 years old when my mother brought me to Canabris and left me with my grandma. She said to her, "You and your demon have ruined my life. Now you handle them." Then she left. I haven't seen her or my dad since. She did leave a blanket though, that part was true. But my grandma burned it because it was infested with lice. It wasn't even good enough to use as a rag. You think after all that, my grandmother saw the light, felt rightly ashamed and kissed my horns? I wish. Woodif grins nastily, his yellow eyes flashing. People used to give her trouble for fooling around with a demon. She wasn't welcome anywhere, so she got angry. Normally kids get bedtime stories, see, but the only tales I got were told were how my dad was worthless, my ma was a slut, and I was a demon spawn that no one cared about. She only kept me so I could help around the house and steal things as needed. So that's the truth. How did you become a tiefling? Woljif grins happily. I already was a tiefling, and life made me a thief. I've been in this business since I was a kid. My grandma used to say, if you don't work, you don't eat. And she gave me as an apprentice to Jurga, a tiefling neighbour of ours. He was a cunning old geezer. He knew how to take a purse off somebody's belt, how to cut open bags undetected, even do some magic. I used to climb through basement windows and open doors from the inside while I was still small enough. And when I grew, I stopped fitting through the windows. I decided I was done with my education. I repaid my grandma for everything she'd done for me, which was absolutely nothing. Why would I feed her if she wasn't bringing me any money? If you don't work, you don't eat. So I took off. I got bored of my teacher too. But when I as much as hinted at leaving, he said I owed him for my education. So I just nodded, and then I joined the Owlbears, the gang that rang our district, and told them that Jurga was working their territory. I don't know what happened to him, but I stayed with the Owlbears. Then their leader started giving me the cold shoulder. I did steal from him, but never that much. So I had to rat them out to the guards. Then I joined the Golden Hands. That was a good time, rich pickings. I would have stayed with the Golden Hands, but the Northmen promised me a bigger cut if I told them where the Golden Hands kept their loot. I'm no fool, of course, so I told them. After that, I only had one option, to join the Northmen. And then the family came. At first, no one took them seriously, calling them tieflings and all that, but I felt it right away. They had power behind them, and they had more money. I'm always on the winner's side, Chief. That's why I joined the tieflings. And right on time, some thugs came from the capital and made the Northmen leave. The ones who survived are in the family now too. Tell me about the tieflings. Alright, I won't tell you everything, mind, but I can tell you a little. The tieflings are Mendevian thieves. The gang was started in Mendev's capital by someone or other, and soon after they'd spread all over Golarion. They're also called the family. You know why? Because us tieflings are easy to spot. Wherever you go, guards always hassle us asking, are you lost or something, Hornhead? We usually say we're visiting family. And if they say, oh yeah, who? You give them the name of a local tiefling who confirms everything, even if he's never seen you before in his life. That's why we're all brothers and sisters. There are rules. Who does what, who gets what cut. I won't say it's a lot, but they make it worth your while. They'll even heal you if you take an arrow. But the biggest no-no is this. You don't steal from the family. If you don't contribute to the sharing pot, you'll get the cold shoulder. You won't be treated like family anymore. And then everyone will hear that you went to visit some relatives who had a farm someplace. My best guess? The farm is some underground well beneath Canaveras where they breed grave worms. Heh. If Sister Charisme, our boss, looked the other way more often, I'd really be able to spread my wings. Stealing from someone you call sister? That's low. Birds fly low before a storm. I'm just surviving as best I can. Woljif fixes you with a look. Imagine the situation, Chief. You're 7 years old. You come home and your own grandma, your family, is lying there drunk. And there's no food because she's got wasted in the morning and didn't cook anything. And you know that she has a stash under the third floorboard. You take this money so you don't starve to death. And then, when she wakes up, she beats you because you shouldn't have taken it. You should have stolen some food. You're a waste of space. That's something you can never understand, Chief. You only care about moral choices. You always know what's right and what's wrong. Brother, sister, grandma, mother, in real life they're just words. What do you think of Canaveras? It used to be such a hole. Then the Crusaders and refugees came here and things started looking up. Although it depends who you ask, I suppose. Witches better steer clear of here, because Ayamede's followers are ferocious. Especially Halran Shapuk, the local inquisitor. He's a tough old goat. I didn't see it myself, but a serving girl at the tavern told me that her second cousin's son from his third wife is a paladin. And he said that Halran takes an unsheathed sword with him even to the privy. And when he sleeps, he puts it on the pillow next to him. And when he's in his cups, he strokes the blade and whispers sweetly to it. You are my one true friend. You are the only one I can rely on. Irabeth's given us a hard time too. You as much as look at some nice little bauble, and before you can think of taking it, before your fingers even twitch, she's coming for you, with her nostrils flaring and her fangs glinting. Scary woman. But even she's better than Sister Charisme, our boss here in Canabris. By our, I mean the Thiefling's boss. If you get caught by Erebeth, it's all out in the open. You go to prison or you end up as worm food. But if you step on Charisme's toes, poof, you're gone. Just like that. No one ever sees you again. All you hear is, he went to the family farm. Even though he's never had a family or a farm. You have demon blood in you. Do you feel drawn to the abyss? Warjiv's tail whips back and forth nervously, raising clouds of dust. Why? Are you an inquisitor or something? What's it to you? If I've wronged you somehow, just come out and say it. Don't ask me trick questions. I know how it happens. I used to know a fella. He was married to the sister of a guard. Some shady types got him drunk one night and started asking him suspicious questions about the gods, about the queen. So he wakes up hungover with a headache. Someone's mumbling something. It smells like smoke. His feet are kind of hot. He looks down and there's a fire under him. And the prelate is reading out his sentence. Your shadow looks strange. What kind of magic is that? Ladies and gentlemen, roll up, roll up. No dark magic, no fraud. A trick without any deception. Warjiv snaps his fingers and blue flames engulf him. The shadow that was previously lying calm at his feet grows, floating in the air behind him. It is the shadow of a huge, horned, winged demon with claws. Ta-da! It doesn't do anything, it just looks scary. I remember when I was little, an old beggar showed me and my friends how to make shadow puppets. You put your fingers together in front of a light and it makes the shadows of a deer or a dog or a dove on the wall. I tried so hard, I wanted to make the best shadow. And I did. It just happened. Warjiv chuckles sadly. Funnily enough, that's the last time I had any real friends. They tried to stone me later, screaming at me, calling me a demon. A tiefling is always a demon to these wimps. Even the lowest ranking drunken gnome thinks he's better than me, just because he hasn't got horns or a tail. The poorest beggar in the filthiest gutter thinks he's better than me. Most people would never show their shadow again after that first time, but I don't care. If stones start flying again, I'll just run. I'm used to it by now. Yeah, we're not going to shame him for having a harmless shadow, so we'll go for the chaotic. Looks formidable. I like it. Warjiv chuckles, please. What about the blue fire? That's my favourite part. And it doesn't burn at all. If I had a coin for every time I've caught a beating for my little show here, I'd already be proposing to Galfrey. But still, I don't want to give up something so beautiful. Enough. I want to ask something else. Go ahead, Chief. Your friends accused you of betraying them. That must be hard. Warjiv stretches out and yawns nonchalantly. Like it's my first time. Every gang I've been in, I'm always the prime suspect when anything suspicious happens. There because I'm a tiefling, here because of my reputation. And what kind of friends are the thieflings to me, I ask you? I don't have friends. Yeah, sure, we're called the family, but it's just a word. They call each other brother and sisters. But then when one of them goes and rats out the others to Irabeth, some family. Warjiv's tail moves faster and faster. You think I'm weeping into my pillow at night because we've been together for so many years and they still don't trust me? I don't care. They'll come crawling back to me to apologise, but it will be too late. I might forgive them, but only if they give me a bigger cut. Or maybe I won't. They should have known I've got pride too. You think I'd be hanging out with those scumbags if life hadn't forced me into it? Maybe if I'd been born into some religious family, I'd be sipping rose tea with Sheelan's paladins instead of talking about how prettily the birds are singing today. If I had a rich daddy, I'd have rich friends, and they wouldn't even care if I was a tiefling. But life ain't fair, and instead of that nice life, I have thieflings who are ready to break my neck based on a hunch. They can all go hang. They ain't the last gang in Mendev, and I'll find a better one if they don't apologise. I have to go. Let's talk later. Warjiv shrugs. Whatever. You're free to do as you please. Oh, also, while I was looking things up, I did have a look at this puzzle down here, because I'm not going to try and figure it out just based on... oh, yeah. So I think This one needs to be down, that one needs to be down, and this one needs to be up, I think. And then you take the shield off the wall and activate the pressure plate. Ta-da! Secret room. There's a letter there. I'm not going to read it though. And some good loot. Mainly this. The headband of alluring charisma, which is very nice to have at this point. And I think I'll give it to Darren, seeing as he's a charisma user. And I'm going to be using him. And I'll give Woolgif the one that has the bonus to stealth checks, seeing as he is a sneaky guy. Should I give Sealer this sword? Oh no, it's the same. It's pretty much the same as Radiance, so she can just keep Radiance. Right, and we're gonna rest finally. Get rid of this Death's Door stat. Oh wait, we need to talk to Irabeth as well. And there's a chance that when I rest, it will activate the attack on the tavern. Because I think it's about 3 days in game time until that attack happens. Irabeth, I want to thank you for saving the esteemed citizens of Carnabaris. Even though not all of them deserve to be saved, may Iomade forgive my words. She casts a meaningful look at Count Arande sitting at a nearby table. I don't really mean that, of course. I just never failed to be astounded by the way that good people seem to perish while not so good prove to be incredibly, amazingly enduring. Even so, the Count did offer me his aid. He can't be all that bad. Yes, that's not like him at all. Joining the Crusades is a tradition among Mendevian nobles, but Darren Arande was never too keen on fighting demons. The Count has a certain reputation in Mendev. He's not a pleasant individual by any means, but he's not known for any particular villainy either. The Count enjoys a life of leisure surrounded by a gaggle of sycophants, who are always eager to badmouth the Queen at his command. He likes settling scores too. There was a hero of the First Crusades, Sir Lant, a kind and honest man. After the end of his glorious career as a soldier, he became a wise mentor to the younger generation. He ran afoul of the Count somehow, perhaps by lecturing him about his idle lifestyle and a lack of purpose. When Sir Lant died, the Count managed to buy a portion of his estate and ordered the knight's helmet to be reforged into a chamber pot. And of course, he didn't keep his little joke private. The Queen was particularly affronted by it, because Sir Lant used to be her most loyal comrade in arms. I was there receiving an assignment from Her Majesty and witnessed the exact moment she found out about the helmet's fate. It's a small thing, but I could see the Queen's anguish at the travesty that had been made of her friend's legacy. That's what our Count is like as a person, and as for his talent for survival, do you know the story of Heaven's Edge? He was the only member of his family to escape with his life when the demons unleashed a magical plague at the Arende estate. Can you tell me more about the events at Heaven's Edge? I don't know all the details. It happened a while ago, back when I was a mercenary and had nothing to do with Carnabaris. I only know that there was a grand feast in honour of Darren's birthday, and all his relatives were invited, along with a few other distinguished guests. Everyone died from a mysterious disease someone had unleashed on the estate, including the servants, the guards, and a number of clerics and paladins, but the young Count survived, because of his healing ability, I suppose. Darren does possess an unusually brilliant talent, even if the application of his skills leaves much to be desired. Irabeth scowls. Why is he trying to provoke the Queen? Who knows? It could be a family matter. The Count is Her Majesty's cousin, twice removed, or something like that. But I think he simply enjoys infuriating people, Crusaders and Iomede's servants especially. Thank you for telling me all this. My pleasure. I'm sorry you had to endure my grumbling. Watching these things happen to my city has put me in a foul mood. I found Jana Aldori like you asked. Yes, thank you. It's good to have her back. We need every fighter we can get. Irabeth frowns. I suppose it's too much to want fighters that are sober as well. I have to go. Go. May Iomade keep you safe. I think we can give something to and Eva in her muted clothes blends almost perfectly into the background. She appears relaxed, but her seemingly unfocused eyes are taking in everything around her, tracking and filtering potential threats. The only tell is the way she drums her fingers on her hip near her weapon sheath. She shows no sign of her injuries and confidently leans on her previously broken leg. She pretends to have just noticed you, even though she watched you approach from afar. Oh, hey, see how they patched me up? Now I can run, jump, or dance a jig if I feel like it. Are there any suspicious places in the city I should pay attention to? There were a couple spots I wanted to check out, but didn't have time. If there really is a den of cultists there, it would be good of you to swoop in there and bust some heads. You don't even need a search warrant. And Eva gives you a crooked smile. First one is the Silken Thread. It's a funny little tailor shop that doesn't take any orders and never buys any fabric, but they always seem oh so busy. They're busy with something in there, alright, but sewing ain't it. Silken Thread has been revealed. Second one is the alchemy shop, Topaz Solutions. They trade in everything, not just healing potions. Judging by the ingredients they've been buying on the black market, there's something fishy about the alchemical rituals going down in that place. Tell me about yourself. She shrugs with a lazy smile. I'd be happy to, but there's nothing to tell. What's so interesting about me? Where are you from? Nowhere. I was blown in by the wind and found in a cabbage patch. She stopped short. Sorry, that's an old habit of mine. I don't like babbling about my past, but you saved my skin, so I guess I kinda owe it to you not to clown around, right? I'm from Needle, and I wouldn't wish my homeland on my worst enemy. You've heard of the place, I'm sure, ruled by monsters that aren't alive or dead, and the official religion is the cult of Zonkuthon. I grew up in a slum, like a weed between the cobblestones. I didn't have a dad, but I had lots of aunts and uncles. My mum's cronies. No prize for guessing what kind of business she was involved in. They gave me a set of lockpicks as soon as I could hold a spoon, and while other kids were picking their noses, I was picking pockets. When I was 12, the monks of the Silent Shroud came for us. Creepy guys with their mouths sewn shut. They're the guards in Nishrok. Mum gave me to her friends, and we hid in a secret temple of Desna. I never saw my mum again. I lay low in the temple for the next few years. I kept my head down. I washed floors, fetched water, listened to sermons. Funny thing, after a while I started liking Desna's teachings. But as soon as I was old enough, I was out of there. I left Nidal and got as far away as I could. Quite a ragtag group you've got here, from nobles to street thieves. You got that right. Only the best for you. What do you do if the knights and nobles fail to save the world? The lowlives are our only hope. How did you meet Irabeth? I was bumming around Timon a while back, doing this and that. Desnian temples sometimes gave me odd jobs. You know, sometimes they needed people with skills like mine. On the surface it was fine, I guess. After Nidal, the freedom of the River Kingdom should have seemed like heaven. My chance to sit back and enjoy life. But I wasn't happy. There just wasn't any joy in my new life. I was all alone. No one cared about me, and I didn't care about anybody either. I struggled to find a reason to drag myself out of bed every morning. Tying a stone around my neck and jumping into the nearest river started to look pretty appealing. One day I was hired to follow some fellows who the local authorities suspected as Razmirian spies. I was stupid. I made a rookie mistake and they caught me. It's like my body had already decided what to do what my mind had been fighting. To finally put me out of my misery. Get someone else to kill me since I didn't have the guts to do it myself. They grabbed me. I thought they'd gut me on the spot, but instead they hog-tied me and dragged me off. And just like an animal going to the slaughter, my only thought was, let's get this over with. They brought me to their stinking cave, threw me on their altar, and I realised who it was. Kuthites, from Nidal. They tracked me down after all those years, but I didn't care anymore. Wouldn't even have cared if they'd eaten me or whatever. We all gotta go sometime, right? So I was lying there staring at those knives pointing at me when fate rolled the dice and I hit the jackpot. Irabeth. There she was, storming into the cave. Picture it, I'm lying on an altar with all these knife-wielding maniacs around me and suddenly Irabeth storms in. I thought it was Iomedae herself. Fierce in her shining armour with her gleaming sword raised, she made quick work of those scumbags. Chopped them up just like that. I didn't even have time to blink. She untied me and then... And Eva's face lights up as she chuckles. She looked through the papers they had on the table. She started swearing like a sailor. So much for Iomedae. How did you and Irabeth end up in Canabras? After almost becoming a human sacrifice, I knew I never wanted to leave Erebeth's side. Desna knows I fell for her instantly, and I fell hard. My misery was gone, and when Erebeth showed me what was in those papers, proof that the cultists had a nest in her home city, well, I offered to help without a second thought. And Eva smiles warmly. She must have figured I couldn't wait to get my revenge on the cultists, but I didn't give a damn about them. It was her. I'd go anywhere with her, even on a crusade or into the jaws of a dragon. But I took to life in Canabris like a duck to water. I used to be an outcast wherever I went, but half of the crusaders are the same. After all, who'd volunteer to tangle with demons on the edge of the abyss? You gotta be either a goody two-shoes with too much honour and free time, or a misfit with no life out in the normal world with normal people. People come here to run away from their debts, their past, from themselves, so I fit right in. What's it like living with Erebeth? It's like living. Without her, I wouldn't be. Seriously, if I were alone, I'd definitely be gone by now. Sure, sometimes we argue, can't deny that. Sometimes we bang our fists on the table and yell so loud that the walls shake. But that's all about order business. But at home, well, I'll give you an example. I've kind of always wanted to move out of that broom closet we call a house and into somewhere cozier. But it ain't like they take a vow of poverty at the Eagle Watch. But every month, somehow most of our spare money is spent on crusader business. Sure, I get mad about it, but... And Eva makes a helpless gesture. It's part of why I love her so much. You know, Erebeth has that thing that matters most for a person. A purpose in life. She's always got a reason for doing whatever she's doing. Her whole life is a crusade, and I just drifted around like a leaf in the wind until Desna brought us together. Now she's the meaning of my life, so it really makes no difference if we live in a mansion or under a bush. Thank you for your answers. Thanks for asking. Telling you all this kind of made me feel a bit better. What are your responsibilities in Eagle Watch? And Eva smiles evasively. Nothing official. I'm not even a knight, you know. I just hang around. You sure you want to know the details? Catching traitors and spies and cultists is no walk in the park. It's a delicate job. You can't always do it all within the letter of the law. What if we surprise some suspicious blighter with an official search? Everyone will know about it before long, starting with their cronies. Then again, sneaking into people's houses at night ain't exactly legal. Crusaders can't be doing stuff like that, can they? Well, I'm not exactly a knight. She trails off. I have to go. Alright, watch yourself now. I thought, because we got, yeah, we got like a note from their house. So I kind of thought that maybe it's with, hold on. Let's go chat a bit more with Erebeth. Allow me to ask you a few personal questions. Frowning a little, Erebeth nods. Please, but I must warn you, there are some things I don't have the right to discuss. Where are you from? I was born in Canabris. I grew up on a farm just outside it, but my way back home lay at the end of a long winding road. It took me years of travelling through foreign lands before I came to be where I've always belonged. How did you become a paladin? A bitter smile appears across the half-orc's face. I don't much like to remember it, believe it or not. The story of how I became a paladin is also the story of how I failed to become a knight. My parents were crusaders. May their souls stand together in Iomede's celestial army. When I was born, they retired from the war and started preparing me to continue their legacy. But my father was an orc. You'd be pressed to find a calmer, wiser, and more pious servant of the goddess than he. But still, all his life he was dogged by sideways looks and whispers. When I grew older and it was time for me to serve, I decided, anywhere but Canabris. That was where my father had served loyally, and his only reward had been injustice. Besides, the witch hunters, led by the honourable Prelate Holrun, stalked the city with a heavy hand. Who knows what they'd have done to a strange green girl with green skin. Instead, I went to... A smirk that looks more like a painful grimace crosses her face. You can laugh if you want, but I was young and foolish. I chose Lastwall, of all places. You can imagine how well I was accepted in a country that's been battling orcs of Belkzen since its foundation. There are many there like me, but we were all treated as second-class citizens. To the locals, my green skin was worse than leper scales. Leper scabs. Even my brothers in faith kept their distance. I took my vows, and the goddess granted me the powers of a paladin. But even then, not a single order would accept me into their ranks. I spent another 6 months knocking on doors before I realised a simple truth. I served Iomede, not these people. I don't have to prostrate myself before them. So I left. as a paladin, but not a knight. It's probably hard for you as a human to imagine what it's like, when the very colour of your skin and the fangs in your mouth make people in the street turn on their heel to avoid you. I mean no offence, of course. How did you come to join a knightly order? I left Lastwall and went travelling. The goddess guided me and my path led me to where atrocities were happening. I often fought in exchange for gold, but never for unworthy aims, of course. I wandered the river kingdoms for a few years, killing monsters and tracking down criminals. Sometimes I thought I was just wasting time, that my true place was in Canabris. But I pushed those thoughts away. I didn't even want to think about going back. But in the end, divine providence had brought me to my senses. It happened in Timon. I was tracking a gang of bandits, which my employer suspected was a cover for Resmirian spies. I managed to find their lair, but instead I found something far more dangerous than spies, an unholy temple to Zon Kuthon. When I broke in there, the cultists were about to sacrifice someone, the person who was destined to become my wife, Anevia, but that's another story. After I cut down the cultists, I examined their papers and couldn't believe my eyes. A network of evil cultists had spread through all of Avestan, including Mendev. Worse, the documents clearly showed that their allies, the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth, had infested my native Canabris, and were even among the ranks of the Paladins. After that, delaying my homecoming would have been tantamount to desertion. Luckily, I was no longer alone. Anevia was as eager to destroy the cultists as I was. Anevia and I hurried to Canabris. We couldn't trust anyone. The papers indicated that the cultists had infiltrated everything. Luckily, I had some experience in investigation, and my beloved, the half-orc smiles warmly. She knew her way around working locks, tailing people, and trading information with the city's bottom feeders. Soon we defeated, alas, not the whole Hydra, but a few of its heads. Do you know who turned out to be the leader of the cultists? The commander of the Eagle Watch. Can you imagine? While Prelate Holbram was chasing witches through the city, the enemy had infiltrated the very order responsible for internal security. The scandal reached the ears of the Queen. At first she planned to disband the order in disgrace, but then she offered its command to me, and put its salvation in my hands. Of course there was one small catch. I wasn't a knight, but I was made commander just the same, skipping the usual progression through the ranks. Law religion check passed. I can't imagine the followers of Zon Kuthon in alliance with demon worshippers. Shouldn't they hate each other? They should, but Baphomet's minions are masters of deception. They manipulated Zon Kuthon's butchers as easily as Iomede's knights. The cultists from that unholy temple didn't know the true face of their associates in Canabris. We ourselves learned the truth much later, after getting to the bottom of their nest. How do the people of Canabris feel about your background? They tolerated it surprisingly well. I shouldn't have been so wary. Crusaders don't tend to be prejudiced as a rule. After all, heroes from all over the world, even from other continents, come here to fight the demons. Apparently the people were only suspicious of full-blooded orcs. There were already many like me here, and we didn't have any problems. Though the locals do have their superstitions. Mendev is as merciless as Lastwall. They just have a different set of victims. I keep seeing those same sideways looks and scowls, hearing the familiar whispers. But where once they used to whisper behind my back and point at me, now they whisper in my ear and point to someone else. It's so strange to be on the other side of humiliation, to wipe the spit from your face and suddenly be invited to change position and spit at someone else. You may have figured out by now I'm talking about the tieflings. It's true there are many of them among the cultists, and few among our crusaders, and our fighters do all they can to drive away those who would be our allies. People shun them, call them Marilu's spawn or worse, as if they chose to be born like that. I believe it's quite a feat to rise against the call of one's blood and join the forces of good. Still, most only see them as the enemy. I once saw a knight bleeding to death because he wouldn't let a tiefling priest touch his wound. Alas, I haven't been able to change this in all my time in Canabris. Tell me about Anevia. We met in Timon as I was wandering aimlessly from one ordeal to another. We returned to Canabris together to expose the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth. The day the Queen knighted me was the second happiest day of my life. The first was the day of our wedding. But Anevia isn't just my beloved. She's my staunchest ally. We share our victory and defeat. The best of me is alive thanks to her. Thank you for saving her back then, the day Canabris fell. Before I returned, the only thing giving me the strength to protect the Defender's heart was the hope that I'd see her again. We are in your debt. Thanks for your answers. Ireth nods without saying a word. I have to go. Go, my Armady, keep you safe. I've done enough talking. Done quite a lot of talking, actually. One sec. Yeah, I think I'm gonna rest and see if it triggers the attack or not.
Careful now.
Plus, so hearty meal gives you a +1 cooking bonus and all skill checks for a day. Onion soup provides you a +1 cooking bonus and all saving throws for the day. And seasoned wings and thighs provide you with 1 temporary hit point per level for a day. Let's go onion soup, and let's have Ness do it because she's better at this. Onion soup, yep. Nenio's decent at scroll scribbing. But we still need to get a kit, so we can't actually do anything with that. Begin resting.
Camellia is a plant, right? Something like water hemlock?
And lawn is some specimen of underground fauna? Like a horned toad?
Wow, those two don't get along. Oh. There is a bunch of dead demons in here. I think that means the attack is going to start. Wait, why are there a bunch of... That's a bit weird. Why are there a bunch of dead demons in here? Do you know anything about this Camellia? Nope.
Precisely.
In Evia, there's some demons in my room. Okay, no. Why? Oh, there's an investigation thing, okay. The demons were killed recently, no doubt about that, but it's not clear if it happened here or if the bodies were brought here from somewhere else. So what, someone's just dumping demon bodies in my room? I was asleep. That is outrageous. Oh, Ember's moved in here now. Okay. Well, it looks like we have a bit of time before the attack starts. Yeah, let's go back out then.
Always watch your back.
There's some tieflings here. If I made it through this, I'm never going near the whirlwind ever again. Yeah, we've done enough talking for now. I'm trying to remember if you ever get an explanation as to why there's just demons in your room after you rest, but it's pretty strange. I've got my my buffs.
Careful now.
Okay, I think I'm gonna pause this episode there, but then next episode we will go back out into Canabris and do some more exploring. Cool. See you in a bit.